What's up everyone, Alex here. It's been a long time coming, but I'm finally proud to announce that I finally got a chance to play the Star Ocean Divine Force demo that was released about a week or two ago. To give you all context as to my relationship with the Star Ocean franchise, the last game that I played in it was The Last Hope, back on the Xbox 360, and that really disappointed me and made me swear off the series completely. I also find that I am one of the few people who actually enjoyed their time with Star Ocean till the end of time, which includes its controversial ending when it was first released. Now granted, many of its mechanics haven't aged well, but I figured I'd put it out there so you all have a complete picture of what the Star Ocean series means to me. In my upcoming games video, I also mentioned that Star Ocean and Tales are related in some way, as plenty of staff from either developer mostly came from Tales. With Divine Force, Tri-Ace is making a statement and venturing forward into their own vision of how that style of combat should evolve, and it's very interesting to see what they've come up with. For starters, it's not a button masher. Each attack is mapped to square, triangle, and circle, I'm playing this on the PS4 Pro by the way, and consumes a resource called AP, which you can gain back just by standing still. And if you're not careful and you do mash buttons, you might consume all of your AP, which forces you to run around and not able to attack. You do have the requisite dodge button, a run, and a jump, particularly in order to hit those nasty flying enemies. Divine Force's base progression system is a skill tree that allows you to customize how you spec your character. Leveling in the demo seems to have been sped up so you can unlock plenty of these abilities and passives, so I was able to unlock a bunch of new attacks while playing it. But the real star of the show is the Dumas system, which allows you to zip onto unsuspecting enemies and even flying sideways to blindside enemies and deal massive damage. At first, it felt kind of unwieldy to me, but once you understand how this works alongside your combos and attacks, it becomes quite an indispensable set of abilities. You can upgrade the Dumas separately by collecting crystals that are scattered across the field, and you can even use Dumas to propel yourself to hard-to-reach areas, making for light platforming sections that'll make you want to reach every platform to pick up items or reach a treasure chest or two. Simply put, the existence of the Dumas system not only gives Star Ocean's combat a bit of different dimension, but also adds a bit of explorable, easy-to-reach verticality that is simply rare to find in RPGs these days. After playing through the entire demo for a little over an hour, I do have a few nitpicks. So I'm playing the game with English voice acting, but I did find that outside of the gameplay sequences, minutes into the game, I noticed that the beginning pre-rendered cutscenes have really bad lip syncing. And this is quite a bit jarring, especially since these are the scenes that's supposed to hook you into the game and what's happening in the story. And it happens multiple times on multiple characters that it's just like, guys, take the time to get this right. I know this is a demo, but still, first impressions are everything.
Seriously, something's up today. I can feel it.
I heard it also has a Kenny on board. What's it doing so far outside of Fed space? It is you. Man, I'm glad to hear your voice.
Outside of that though, I found that the English voice acting, at least from what I played, to be serviceable. There's nothing particularly groundbreaking about it, and from what I heard, they're doing the best that they can to portray these characters in a way that they've been told to understand it. Typically, voice actors don't even get to see the games or even the scenes that they're portraying, so this is reliant a lot on the direction from the developers, so that's really super important. The footage that you're seeing right now is taken from a PS4 Pro with the rendering mode set to performance, and if you're noticing, it still can't hold a stable frame rate. In fact, the frame rate is dramatically better in performance mode, as it was difficult to play when set to quality. The footage that I'm showing you right now is what the game looks like if you set it to quality mode, and it's not great. It also doesn't help that in some areas, the foliage obscures the action a bit too much, so with the frame rate lower and inconsistent, it sometimes appears as though there's something blocking your view out at random, and you'll have to play around with the camera to see your character again. The color depth of the game is also a lot less dense, which makes certain colors blend with one another, ultimately making things appear a little bit muddy or blurry. This makes me think that combined with the game's performance on the PS4, that the PS5 version is the quote-unquote hero version of the title, meaning it's primarily being made for that platform and tuning it down appropriately to make it work for previous gen systems. This isn't a new thing, by the way, it's just something that a lot of developers do in order to make things a bit easier to develop, but still, the color depth is really surprisingly jarring here, and I found it very difficult to really enjoy the environments despite the increased verticality and the interest coming into that. The auto-lock camera also feels a bit too lazy in that it allows enemies to stay really far onto the edge of the screen, making it feel an unnatural implementation of this camera system. I don't know why Tri-Ace decided that this was a good idea, but I would love to have a toggle that makes things a bit tighter for the player so that we're not playing around with cameras a bit much. And speaking of, I wish there was a way to auto-target enemies after you've defeated them. If you're surrounded with plenty of enemies, for example, you're gonna wish you had this, as you cannot simply hit R3 to auto-lock the closest enemy unless they're visible on screen. And with the way that you're playing around with Dumas and with tons of foliage surrounding you, it's very easy to lose track of these enemies even with the radar system that Dumas gives you. That being said, this is the demo, meaning this playable build is based off of one from several months ago, so I'm hoping that many of these can get ironed out before release. Nitpicks of its presentation and etc. aside, I do love the juxtaposition between the main protagonist Ray, in the demo at least since you can select from 2 protagonists in the full game, with the local inhabitants of the planet you've crashed onto. As one might expect from an individual from an advanced civilization arriving on a planet beset by war and is still developing its technology, there's plenty of interesting interactions to be seen between both sides that's at the heart of why Star Ocean is different than other RPG series out there. It's the promise of space exploration and the discovery of strange, albeit familiar, feeling new worlds. It's basically anime Star Trek to some capacity. So the big question then is, am I going to give the full game a shot? Well, right now, I'm a bit hungry for meaty, lengthy action RPGs, and I'm kind of hoping that Divine Force delivers on that aspect. I didn't even talk about the AI, which I'm not really convinced that it will be good in the final version, and I'm not convinced that they're not going to get in the way of the action. Yes, there's a way to stop time and kind of command them, but that kind of defeats the purpose of just going into an action game and focusing on the moment-to-moment action. If I have to babysit party members, that pulls me away from what I'm supposed to do and just makes me wish this was a turn-based RPG to begin with. That's not good for party-based action RPGs, not at all, especially after Tales of Arise. That being said, what I played so far gives me hope that we'll see more from this franchise. And quite honestly, I want to give this game a shot because I really want a Star Ocean game that fans can truly be proud of and can really put beside some of the best RPGs of this generation. And I think Star Ocean, if they play their cards well and address some of the nitpicks that I mentioned, that they can really nail this at the end of the day. But for now, this is what I think of Star Ocean Divine Force based off of the demo that I played. And if you haven't played the demo, I highly recommend downloading it for yourself to try out. It's really cool that Square Enix has been releasing a lot of playable demos recently so that they can give us fans the opportunity to play around with these ideas and give them feedback, so I highly recommend checking it out before anything else. And above all else, thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.